I had spent half a year building the company's most important project. 6 relentless months of late nights, skipped weekends, and revisions so thorough that my laptop felt more familiar than my own apartment. This project wasn't just another assignment, it was the backbone of the client system the CEO had personally prioritized. Every framework, workflow, and test cycle carried my mark. I wasn't naive. In the corporate world, results are currency. This was going to be mine. After years of steady contributions, I wanted my work to be undeniable, something even HR couldn't file away in silence. And when the pilot run succeeded without a single major failure, I thought my time had finally come. But the corporate stage has a way of twisting victories into traps. 2 months before the official review, the CEO's son entered the company. He didn't join as a strategist, developer, or analyst. No, he arrived with the lightest title possible, intern. A title that was supposed to mean learning, but everyone knew what it really meant. His seat was carved out for him, not earned. He was placed close to projects that mattered, positioned beside executives, and shielded from consequences. From his first week, I could feel the shift. He hovered around my desk, glancing at reports he didn't understand, asking questions that had answers buried in basic training manuals. He requested access to files, my files, under the guise of just trying to see how things worked. HR approved every request without hesitation. I thought it was harmless at first. He was just the CEO's son, pretending to learn while we carried the load. But then the permissions stacked. Read-only became edit. Observation became presentation. I felt the ground shift, and by the time I realized the trap was closing, it was too late. The quarterly review arrived. My project was the headline item, the one everyone was waiting to see. But instead of me standing at the front of the room, I watched in disbelief as the CEO's intern son walked to the stage, slides in hand, confidence in his step, HR at his side. And then he began to speak. Every diagram was mine. Every performance metric was my calculation. Every workflow description was lifted straight from the drafts I had spent weeks refining. He stumbled through technical terms, mispronouncing half of them, but carried himself with the smug assurance of someone who knew no one would challenge him. HR clapped first. Their smiles were wide, performative. The rest of the room followed, uncertain but compliant. I scanned faces, searching for a reaction, for someone to at least acknowledge what was happening. But silence sat heavy. When I stood to object, HR cut me off sharply. This was a collaborative effort. Let's not disrupt the review. Collaborative effort? I had been the only one touching the files until his access was granted. But HR's tone wasn't just dismissive, it was threatening. Challenge this and you'll be branded disruptive. The CEO wasn't in the room. He was overseas, securing a partnership deal. That absence gave his son cover. By the time the meeting ended, my project was stamped with another name. The following days burned like acid. Internal announcements credited him as project lead. Emails congratulated him on his impressive leadership. HR doubled down, calling his role inspirational. And my name? Nowhere. I tried to escalate formally. HR's reply was cold, efficient. Please don't escalate personal disputes. You'll have other chances. Other chances? 6 months of my work had been erased with a signature, and they expected me to wait for another window? The intern's son's arrogance only grew. At a Friday gathering, he boasted openly about his strategic vision, claiming he had guided the team. He laughed, saying maybe he should start training the rest of us. The crowd chuckled, forced, nervous, complicit. I didn't argue. I didn't storm out. I watched. Because while HR could erase credit lines and emails could carry false praise, there was one thing they couldn't rewrite, the files themselves. Every version, every draft, every test log bore digital fingerprints. Each timestamp told the truth. Each entry showed who had worked and who had only hovered. The son's name appeared only at the end, spectator, never architect. Those files were my shield, my silent defense. I didn't need to fight HR in emails. I didn't need to beg for recognition. All I had to do was wait for the moment the project crossed the CEO's desk. That moment came sooner than I expected. The CEO returned from his trip, glowing with investor optimism, ready to showcase the company's progress. HR rushed to brief him, layering praise on his son. He's really taken charge, they said. The project was a success under his leadership. But the CEO wasn't a man who trusted words alone. Numbers built his empire, and numbers were the only language he respected. So when he asked to personally review the project files before presenting them to investors, HR hesitated, but he insisted. IT opened the archives. Logs appeared on the screen. Drafts unfolded in sequence. One by one, the truth resurfaced. My fingerprints on every stage, every detail. His son's name nowhere, except as a late viewer. The CEO's face tightened as he scrolled. HR shifted in their seats. The intern's son tried to fill the silence, mumbling about team effort and mentorship. But the system didn't lie. The truth wasn't negotiable. From the back of the room, I stayed silent. For weeks, my voice had been ignored. Now the files themselves were speaking, louder than I ever could. The CEO leaned back, closed the files, and set his gaze directly on his son. His expression was unreadable, but his silence was heavier than any accusation. Finally, he spoke. Do you understand what I've just reviewed? The intern's son shifted uncomfortably, then forced a casual smile. Dad, it's all business. Every company needs someone willing to take bold steps. That's what I did. If people are complaining, it's because they can't keep up. The CEO's tone was measured, almost surgical. Bold steps? Or reckless shortcuts? Because what I see in these files doesn't look like leadership. It looks like manipulation. Inflated reports. Selective removals. Stripped credits. The HR director quickly leaned forward, sensing the pressure. Sir, with respect, the intern demonstrated initiative. These files might look unconventional, but he delivered results. The company benefited. That's what matters. The CEO's eyes shifted to her, sharp as a blade. Results? Let's define that word. Whose results exactly? The reports claim new strategies, but the timestamps show otherwise. Whole sections were lifted from previous work. You stamped approval without question. Tell me, did you verify, or did you just sign off? The HR faltered. I trusted his presentation. He had confidence. He showed commitment. Confidence, the CEO repeated slowly, is not competence. Commitment without credibility is worthless. The son interjected, his voice rising. You're overanalyzing. The files don't show the full picture. I was leading teams, pushing deadlines, driving performance. The details don't matter as long as the company grows. The CEO's jaw tightened. Details don't matter? Details built this company. Every contract, every deliverable, every client relationship, founded on accuracy. If details don't matter, then why should clients trust us at all? A tense silence spread across the boardroom. The CEO flipped to another file. Here. Project Orion. You claimed innovation, yet the version history proves otherwise. Drafts were authored by someone else months before you entered. You signed your name as lead, yet the real contributor's name is absent. Tell me, how did her name vanish? The son stiffened. Maybe she didn't meet expectations. Maybe her drafts weren't usable. The CEO's voice cut sharper. Not usable? The revisions you submitted match her drafts word for word. So explain, what part did you play besides deleting her name and inserting yours? The HR jumped in again. Sir, let's not escalate. Perhaps it was a formatting error. Misplaced attribution happens often in large projects. The CEO turned to her with piercing precision. A formatting error doesn't rewrite metadata. A formatting error doesn't erase weeks of work with digital traces still intact. Either you didn't check, or you deliberately overlooked it. Which one is it? The HR's lips parted, but no words came. The son leaned forward defensively. Why does it matter who typed what? At the end of the day, the project carried my vision. That's leadership, taking ownership, presenting results. Everyone benefits if the company succeeds. The CEO's eyes narrowed. Taking ownership? Or taking credit? Because those are not the same. One earns respect. The other destroys it. The board members shifted in their seats, sensing the storm rising. The CEO tapped the file again. Project Helix. Financial allocations. According to your submission, costs ballooned by 18%. Yet procurement logs show no matching expense. Where did that money go? The son faltered. It's tied to resource acceleration. Internal adjustments. Complicated accounting. The CEO's tone was icy. Complicated? The numbers don't lie. Funds were redirected under vague categories with no receipts, no accountability. That's not complicated, that's suspicious. The HR attempted to shield him. Sir, it's common for interns to misunderstand budget categories. I guided him. The expenses were redistributed for flexibility. Nothing improper. The CEO leaned in. Flexibility? Or negligence? Because redistribution without documentation isn't flexibility, it's a breach of protocol. And you signed off again. Care to explain why every irregularity has your approval stamp? Her hands trembled. I believed in his capability. He's your son. I assumed his initiatives carried your blessing. The CEO's voice dropped lower, each word deliberate. You assumed. In this company, assumptions cost millions. We don't operate on assumptions. We operate on proof. The son exhaled sharply, trying to regain control. Enough. You're treating me like some outsider. I'm your son. Everything I've done is for this company's future. Don't act like I'm the enemy here. The CEO's stare was cold. Family doesn't grant immunity from accountability. Bloodline doesn't excuse dishonesty. If anything, being my son means the standards are higher. The son's face hardened. You built this empire your way. Now it's my turn. If you can't accept that, maybe you're the one holding us back. The CEO didn't flinch. An empire built on theft collapses faster than one built on sand. You think stripping credit builds legacy? It builds resentment. You think inflating numbers builds trust? It builds collapse. The HR tried again, her voice weak. Sir, with due respect, this can be contained internally. No need to escalate. If we address it quietly, the company avoids bad press. The board doesn't need. The CEO cut her off, his tone final. Silence. Containment isn't justice. Silence isn't integrity. I didn't build this company to shield incompetence or reward fraud. He opened another file, sliding it across the table. This is a client complaint logged last month. The project presented as innovative was identical to a draft they'd seen 6 months earlier, from the original employee. They noticed. They questioned. And yet, this file claims the work as new. Explain that. The son's face drained of color. They wouldn't have known if she hadn't spoken. She must have contacted them. She sabotaged me. The CEO's voice cut like steel. No. She protected her work. And you exposed yourself by underestimating her. The HR's tone cracked under the weight of silence. Sir, perhaps discipline is warranted, but dismissal seems harsh. He's young. He'll learn. The CEO turned slowly, eyes fixed on her. Young? Learning? He's not a child, he's an intern trusted with responsibility. And you, an HR director, enabled every breach, every theft, every falsified report. Either you're blind, or complicit. Which is worse? Her voice broke. I just followed what seemed safe. I thought supporting him was supporting you. The CEO stood. His voice carried across the room, steady and final. Supporting me means protecting this company's values. Not protecting fraud. Not enabling arrogance. Not burying the truth. He turned back to his son. You wanted credit. You claimed leadership. You insisted details don't matter. Well, here's the detail that does. Everything you've built here is a lie. And lies don't last. The room was silent. The weight of his words pressed harder than any shouting could. The CEO leaned back, folded his arms, and fixed his eyes on his son once more. You wanted a seat at this table. You wanted recognition. Now you'll face accountability. The son's jaw tightened. Accountability? You're exaggerating. You can't put me on trial in front of the board. The CEO's tone was cold, even. This is not exaggeration. This is examination. And yes, this board will hear the truth. The HR director leaned forward quickly. Sir, with respect, this may damage morale. If we escalate, people will question leadership stability. Perhaps a private discussion would be wiser. The CEO didn't even glance at her. Morale isn't destroyed by truth. It's destroyed by deceit. If this company's stability relies on lies, then it has no stability at all. He opened the first file again. Let's start with Project Orion. Claimed as original innovation. Yet, metadata proves authorship belonged elsewhere. Not only erased, but rebranded under your name. The son leaned back in his chair, smirking faintly. Dad, the board doesn't care about metadata. They care about profits. Orion delivered revenue. End of story. The CEO's gaze hardened. Profits built on theft collapse once the truth is out. And the truth is out. He slid a document across the table. This is a certified audit. Independent review. Every discrepancy highlighted, every false signature traced, every credit misattributed. Board members, take a look. One by one, the executives leaned in, scanning the evidence. Brows furrowed. Eyes narrowed. Murmurs spread. The HR tried again, her voice shaky. With respect, audits are subject to interpretation. These findings don't necessarily prove intent. Mistakes happen. Attributing malice could be premature. The CEO's reply was razor sharp. Mistakes repeat when systems fail. But this isn't repetition, it's pattern. A consistent removal of one employee's name. A consistent inflation of numbers. A consistent approval under your signature. That's not error. That's orchestration. The son slammed his hand on the table. You're making this dramatic to embarrass me. You could have handled this quietly, but instead you're parading me like a criminal. The CEO's voice remained calm. Embarrassment is self-inflicted when actions can't withstand scrutiny. If you feel paraded, it's because the truth doesn't defend you. One board member finally spoke. Sir, this evidence, it's significant. If accurate, it indicates deliberate misrepresentation. That's a liability. The sun snapped. Liability? I brought energy to this place. Without me, half of you wouldn't even have results to report. The CEO's eyes narrowed. You confuse visibility with contribution. Shouting doesn't equal substance. And arrogance doesn't erase accountability. The HR tried again, her voice turning defensive. Sir, interns aren't trained for full responsibility. If anything, blame falls on us for giving too much authority too soon. Perhaps we should treat this as developmental failure, not misconduct. The CEO's reply cut clean. No. Responsibility was assigned with oversight. Oversight was yours. And every breach carried your approval. You didn't fail to supervise. You chose to protect him. The HR's voice cracked. I thought supporting him was protecting the company's direction. The CEO turned his gaze directly to her. Supporting him meant burying integrity. You didn't protect this company, you endangered it. The sun tried to regain ground. You're acting like this company survived without shortcuts. Don't pretend you didn't bend rules when you built it. The CEO's jaw tightened. I bent my back, not the rules. I sacrificed hours, not honesty. That's the difference you'll never understand. Another board member cleared his throat. If the audit stands, there's exposure risk. Clients could question every project touched by this intern. That undermines trust at scale. The CEO nodded. Exactly. That's why accountability isn't optional. Trust is currency here. Once it's gone, revenue follows. The son's voice broke into frustration. So what, you're going to fire me? Make headlines? Let everyone know your son was a fraud? The CEO leaned forward. Firing is consequence. Fraud is choice. You made the choice. Now you live with the consequence. The HR tried one last plea. Sir, if this becomes public, competitors will weaponize it. Investors will question stability. Please, consider optics before action. The CEO's eyes burned into hers. You considered optics over ethics. That's why we're here. I won't repeat that mistake. He tapped the files again. Board members, you have the evidence. Every false signature, every erased contribution, every inflated budget. Review them. See for yourselves. The silence stretched. Papers rustled. Tension tightened. The sun's bravado cracked. You think they'll side with you just because you're CEO? I'm the future of this company. They know it. They won't back your crusade against me. The CEO leaned back, arms folded once more. The future isn't inherited. It's earned. And you've earned nothing but distrust. He let the words sink, heavy as stone. The boardroom sat frozen, every eye shifting between father, son, and HR. Finally, the CEO spoke again, his voice calm but unshakable. You wanted recognition. You took it by force. Now recognition comes in another form, exposure. And exposure leaves no room for denial. The son swallowed hard, his smirk gone. The HR lowered her eyes, hands trembling. The CEO's gaze swept the room. This isn't just about one project. This is about culture. About what we tolerate, and what we refuse. And I refuse to let theft and arrogance define this company. The CEO's words hung in the boardroom like iron. Silence followed, thick, unbroken. Finally, one board member spoke. Sir, your stance is clear. But what action follows? The CEO turned to his son first. You wanted recognition. You stole it. You wanted leadership. You abused it. You wanted trust. You shattered it. As of this moment, your internship is terminated. You hold no standing in this company. The son's face reddened. You can't do this. I'm your blood. This company is supposed to be my inheritance. The CEO's reply was ice cold. An inheritance is not a right. It's a responsibility. And you've proven unfit to carry it. The HR director gasped. Sir, please reconsider. His removal will be viewed as weakness. People will question family loyalty. The CEO's glare turned to her. Loyalty is not silence in the face of corruption. Loyalty is not protecting fraud. You enabled him. You silenced objections. You signed off on false reports. Effective immediately, you are relieved of your position. HR cannot be led by someone who buries truth. Her shoulders slumped, words failing her. The CEO faced the board. The stolen project belonged to one employee. Her drafts, her vision, her effort. She was erased, yet her work carried us. Effective today, her name is restored as lead author. She will receive full credit, full recognition, and rightful promotion. The board members nodded, one after another. The CEO continued, his voice steady. Integrity is not optional here. Every client, every partner, every employee depends on it. If we compromise that, we compromise everything. This company survives because truth stands taller than arrogance. The son slammed a fist on the table. You think the board respects this? They need profit, not lectures. A board member turned toward him, eyes cold. Profit without trust is worthless. You endangered all of us. Don't mistake your last name for immunity. The son fell silent, his defiance unraveling. The CEO gathered the files into a single stack, tapping them firmly. This record remains permanent. Every falsification, every breach, every signature, documented. Let it stand as warning, this company protects contribution, not theft. Loyalty, not arrogance. Truth, not manipulation. He turned to the board one final time. Do we stand united on this? One by one, heads nodded. Yes. The CEO's gaze returned to his son. You wanted a legacy. Today, you've written it yourself. A legacy of shortcuts, of arrogance, of failure. That's what you carry now, not my name, not this company. The son's voice cracked, no longer bold, only desperate. You'll regret this. The CEO's final words were quiet, absolute. The only regret would be tolerating one more day of fraud. He stood, closing the files with finality. The discussion is over. Justice is delivered. Let this company move forward clean. The board rose in agreement. The HR lowered her head, defeated. The son sat frozen, stripped of power, stripped of protection, stripped of the arrogance that once shielded him. And for the first time, the stolen employee's name was spoken, not erased, not hidden, but restored where it always belonged. The CEO's final declaration echoed through the boardroom. This company will be remembered not for arrogance, but for integrity. And that begins today. Backhand index pointing right. Subscribe now to follow more powerful corporate revenge stories where justice always finds its way.